Well, it relates to legends of Richmond, so.
Yes.
But tonight we're going to talk about haunted Pennsylvania.
Yes, we got something else. Now for something entirely different.
Yes, because, Pennsylvania, this is one I've been promising my family we would get to because I have family in Pennsylvania. One of our guides has family in Pennsylvania, and I'm finally getting her.
Pennsylvania.
And Chris gets the commentary set up and ready to respond to.
Yes. If anybody's watching us tonight. If you're watching us, please drop a note in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, say hi.
Yeah.
Did you catch the latest TikToks in Savannah?
All right, and...
Yay, we have comments.
Fantastic.
All right,
well,
episode.
We don't have comments. Nobody's commented
Well,
yet.
No, but we have the ability to actually respond to comments.
So, yes. Anyways.
So we got some likes and loves on that one.
Yes, we do. So, yeah. Now, there is something different about Pennsylvania after dark. Not something you can always see, but something you can feel. It's in the way the roads stretch a little longer than they should.
Inside joke.
we can speak to that because, it's, a lot of late nights driving Pennsylvania roads.
Yes.
There's the way that certain buildings seem to watch you as you pass. The way quiet places don't always feel empty. Because Pennsylvania is old, and in places like this, history just doesn't sit still, it lingers. In theaters where the show never really ends, on mountain roads where something is still searching, in quiet rooms where no one checks out, and in places where the truth was never fully uncovered. Some of these stories are legends, passed down and retold, changing slightly over time, but others are very much real. And somewhere in between the two is where things get kind of hard to explain. So tonight we're not just telling ghost stories, we're stepping into the spaces where something was left behind.
Well, you know me, we're going to have a theater, so we're just going to start with that.
Yes.
Because I like my haunted theaters. So we're going to go to Pittsburgh Playhouse. This is in Oakland, Pennsylvania, not Pittsburgh. It is a neighborhood of Pittsburgh, but, everybody says theaters always have ghosts. Not all of them are on stage. There are also those who never left. In the Oakland neighborhood, Pittsburgh Playhouse has been putting on performances. That was a lot of P's there. Alliteration. Anyway, they've been putting on performances since 1934. Applause, laughter, tragedy, night after night, year after year. And behind the curtain, there may be more lingering than just the old scripts and the faded stage lights. Because long before it was a theater, the building at 222 Craft Avenue lived many different lives. Depending on who you ask or how much you're willing to believe, it was once a synagogue, then a church, later a restaurant, a speakeasy, and yes, according to one of the more colorful stories, a brothel.
Everybody loves the brothel trope.
I mean, speakeasy, brothel.
Yeah.
Hand in hand. Anyway, there's a lot of history for one building. And if there's any truth to the idea that places remember what they've been, this is one that has had an awful lot to remember. Some say the hauntings go back even further, before the Playhouse ever stood there. There were row houses along that section at one point in time, and in one of them, a fire broke out. Sudden, unforgiving, a mother and her young daughter never made it out. Today, staff and performers alike have reported something unusual, a sound, not quite a scream, not quite a voice, but something in between. A soft, sorrowful weeping that seems to drift through the theater when the building is quiet. They've even given her a name, Weeping Eleanor. No one sees her clearly, not as a full apparition anyway. She doesn't make a dramatic entrance. It's just the feeling that there's someone there in the shadows, a grieving mother who's still searching for what she lost. And in a place built for performance, it's almost as if her sorrow echoes louder when there's no audience left to hear it. But Eleanor's not the only spirit to linger in this playhouse. If you find yourself looking towards the balcony, you might catch a glimpse of something pale, still, watching. They call her the Lady in White. As the story goes, one that sounds almost too theatrical to be real, a bride discovered on her wedding day that her new husband had already betrayed her. In a moment of heartbreak and fury, she shot both him and his lover before turning the gun on herself and plunging from a balcony to her death. It's a story that feels tailor-made for the stage, dramatic, sudden, almost operatic, which is exactly how some historians and skeptics question whether or not this actually truly happened, whether it's fact or folklore. But people report seeing her, a figure in white, silent, watching from above, not performing, not interacting, just observing. It's as if the show has never ended for her. Then there's the actor. This is a theater, after all. The story is simpler, less dramatic perhaps, but no less eerie. In the 1950s, an actor reportedly suffered a fatal heart attack during a production. He was carried off stage and taken to the dressing room number 7. And ever since then, people have heard footsteps, not random creaks or settling wood, but deliberate footsteps, measured and familiar, climbing the stairs, always towards the dressing room number 7. And here's the strange part. Whoever or whatever is making those footsteps never goes inside. The door remains closed as if the actor reaches it, pauses, and then remembers something. Or perhaps realizes that he no longer belongs there. Instead, some say his presence lingers just outside before drifting back towards the stage, still watching, still waiting, like any good performer, unwilling to miss the show. Or maybe it's miss his cue. But that's a common thread here. Grief, betrayal, obsession, applause. Kinds of emotions that theaters are built to amplify, and maybe sometimes they don't stay contained to the script. Because in a place like the Pittsburgh Playhouse, the line between performance and reality can start to blur. When the house lights dim, the audience disappears, the stage falls silent, and you have to wonder, who is still out there waiting for that cue?
But not every ghost stays behind a curtain. Some don't need a stage at all. Sometimes all it takes is a road and a turn you don't see coming until it's too late. If you're looking for ghosts in Pennsylvania, you don't always have to step inside a building. Sometimes all you have to do is take a walk or maybe a drive. About 2 hours from Pittsburgh, just outside Altoona, there's a stretch of road that doesn't look much at first glance. Beulah Road winds its way up Wopsononock Mountain, quiet and wooded, almost peaceful during the day. But locals will tell you it's better not to linger out there after dark, because somewhere along that mountain road, between the trees and the bends, something is still searching. Long before the road became what it is today, Wopsononock Mountain was home to a popular destination, the Wopsononock Hotel. Travelers would make the climb for rest, for celebration, and, at least in one case, for a wedding. According to local legend, a young couple once fled up the mountain, desperate to begin their new life together. The bride's father, however, had other plans. He vehemently opposed the marriage and the couple, determined to be together, opposed the marriage, and the couple, determined to be together, escaped by carriage, racing up the winding road toward the hotel. It should have been the start of something joyful. Instead, it became the end. Not far from the summit, the road curves, sharply and dangerously, around a bend now known as Devil's Elbow. Even today, it's the kind of turn that demands your full attention. Back then, it proved fatal. The carriage lost control. It toppled over the side of the mountain. And just like that, the celebration was over. Searchers arrived quickly. They combed the hillside, calling out, lanterns cutting through the darkness. They found the bride, but the groom was gone. No trace, no body, no explanation, just missing. And that's where the story begins to change. Because ever since that night, people have claimed that the bride never stopped looking for him. They call her the White Lady of Wopsononock. Hikers who make the climb up Beulah Road sometimes report seeing a faint glow through the trees, a flicker of light that doesn't quite behave like anything natural. A lantern, carried by a woman in white, moving slowly, searching, as if she expects at any moment to find what she's lost. But the encounters don't stop on the trail. Drivers have their own stories, and they tend to be a little more personal. Some say the woman steps out onto the road itself, appearing suddenly in the headlights. Others claim she approaches vehicles, peering inside, as if checking each face one by one. Looking for someone, waiting for recognition that never comes. And then there are the hitchhiker stories, usually told by younger drivers late at night, maybe a little too confident for their own good. They describe picking up a woman along the roadside. She's quiet, pale, dressed in white. She gives no destination, no explanation, just a presence in the back seat. But something feels off, because when they glance at the rearview mirror, there's no one there. The seat appears empty. And yet, when they turn around, she's still sitting right behind them. The road continues, the trees close in, and eventually they reach Devil's Elbow. That same curve, the same place. And just as the car begins to round it, she disappears. No door opening, no sound, just gone. Now, to be fair, Devil's Elbow has seen its share of very real accidents over the years. It's a dangerous stretch of road, especially for drivers who don't know it well. Sharp turns, steep drops, limited visibility. Plenty of reasons for stories to grow. Plenty of reason for imagination to fill in the gaps. But even with all of that, people still see her, still describe her, still tell the same story over and over again. A bride, a lantern, a search that never ends. So if you ever find yourself on Beulah Road, whether you're hiking beneath the trees or driving through the dark, you might want to keep your eyes on the road, and maybe, just maybe, don't pick up anyone standing at the side of it, because somewhere near Devil's Elbow, she's still out there, still searching. And you might not be who she's looking for, but that doesn't mean she won't check anyway.
Now, some spirits search, others stay exactly where they were left behind. Not every haunting needs a mountain or a tragedy. Sometimes it's just a room. But before we get into that, I just want to double check we didn't have any comments we needed to address.
I don't think so. The comments
seem to have lagged.
They're acting a little funny.
So if we miss responding to you, we can possibly get back to you later, or Chris will try to do it while I'm telling the story.
Okay. Yes, the kitties, well, they seem to be a little chill now. They did just get fed. Yes. They have been anything but chill up until this point.
Full moon activity for longer than the full moon.
Yep.
Yeah. But lots of kitties tonight.
There's still plenty of time for them to completely freak out and make a scene.
Not me, Daddy. I'm so cute.
You are adorable. But you will freak out from time to time.
Yes.
And that's okay. You're a cat.
Yes, they have not been pleased with us of late because we've been running the vacuum because they're shutting up a storm.
She is not impressed the fact that I called her out for actually being a cat.
All right, so we're going to move over to Logan Inn in New Hope, Pennsylvania. Not every haunting needs a grand tragedy. Sometimes it's something quieter. In the riverside town of New Hope, Pennsylvania, stands Logan Inn. It's one of the oldest continuously operated inns in the United States, with roots stretching back to the early 1700s. From outside, it looks exactly like what you would hope for. Warm, historic, inviting. Not the kind of place you expect to share a room with a ghost, and yet many believe that you actually might be doing that. If you're feeling brave or maybe just a little curious, request room number 6. Staff won't make a big deal of it, but they will know what you're after, because room 6 is said to belong to Emily. No one tells her story with much certainty. There's no dramatic death, no scandal, just a simple detail that somehow makes it more unsettling. She was the mother of a former owner, and when she lived and died, it was in that room. Guests who stay there often report the same things: a faint scent of lavender drifting through the air, despite no flowers nearby or perfume of any kind. At night, when everything is still, the sound of soft crying. It's not loud, it's not desperate, just a lingering, quiet grief. There are no shadowy figures rushing to the beds and doors slamming in the dark. It's just the feeling that you're not alone. Somebody else is in the room with you. So if you ever find yourself checking and they hand you the key to room number 6, just maybe ask yourself, are you staying for the night or are you keeping Emily company?
Dun, dun, dun.
I say let's go book into room number 6.
Yeah, I'm up for that.
I like the scent of lilac.
Now, if you think that hauntings are reserved for places like that, old inns, historic buildings, or remote mountain roads, rooms with stories built into the walls, think again. Because sometimes the strangest activity shows up where you'd least expect it. And with that, not every haunting comes with creaking doors and candlelight. Some come with blue light specials and a slightly unsettling return policy.
Yes, we're going shopping.
Yeah. For reasons no one has fully explained,
sorry, buddy.
Kmart, yes, Kmart, has developed a bit of a reputation for ghost stories. And one of the strangest may have come out of the Mount Pocono Mall in Mount Pocono. Night employees there reported seeing a woman in white wandering the aisles after closing. Not rushing or lurking, just browsing, which honestly feels kind of on brand.
Yeah.
But things got a little harder to ignore when one employee claimed she called out to him by name twice. And if that wasn't enough, items from one particular section had a habit of slipping off shelves with no one nearby. Feminine products, specifically. Make of that what you will. The store has since closed, but apparently she hasn't checked out. And if this were just a Pennsylvania thing, maybe you could write it off. But other Kmarts have picked up their own strange reputations over the years. A now closed location in New York City was once described as feeling less like a store and more like the opening scene of a zombie apocalypse, which, depending on the lighting, may not be entirely inaccurate. And out in Los Angeles, one former location carried far darker stories tied to violence, lingering sounds, and things that refused to stay put. So maybe it's coincidence. Maybe it's just what happens when large, quiet buildings sit under humming lights for too long. Or maybe some places don't stop being occupied just because the doors are locked. Either way, if you ever find yourself alone in a nearby empty store late at night, and you hear your name called from the next aisle over, you might want to double check who's actually on the work schedule.
I always thought there was some sort of strange energy with Kmart's.
Yeah, Kmart.
It just has a vibe.
It always had.
It had a vibe.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always a good one.
No, it was not. Anyways, before we digress too much further down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, okay. So every now and then you're going to come across a place where the stories just don't happen in one building. They spread. They go across sidewalks, through classrooms, and over the entire landscape. Places where the past just doesn't linger. It decides it's going to settle in. So we're going to talk about Penn State because you really can't talk about Pennsylvania and not talk about Penn State. And I do say this as a daughter of someone who went to Penn State. Anyway, now there are some places that feel different after dark. Not stranger, just more aware of themselves. Nico, buddy, you are totally blocking the screen.
Cat butt.
Yes, cat tail, actually. Anyway, in daylight, Penn State is all motion and routine, brick sidewalks, backpacks, students hurrying from one class to the next, clutching coffee, half-finished papers, the vague hope that they have not forgotten something important. It feels alive in the most ordinary way. But late at night, that campus changes. The crowds thin out, The windows go dark one by one. The wind moves differently between the buildings. And a long walk back from the library begins to feel longer than it really should. A sound, footsteps perhaps, seem to follow just for a second too long before fading away. And that is when Penn State begins to feel like what so many people have known for generations. It's a campus where the past never truly leaves. Because for all its energy, noise, and motion, there's also a place crowded with memories. Some memories are celebrated, others are mourned. And while some, well, if the stories are to be believed, still wander the grounds, tracing old paths through buildings, hallways, and wide plazas that have seen more than most people have realized. There is a thread tying Penn State's ghost lore. It may be this. On a campus that has been built by so many hands, shaped by so many lives, not everybody is willing to move on. One of the oldest places to begin is Old Botany. In daytime, it's easy to miss. Students pass by it as part of the rhythm of campus life, barely glancing towards the old red brick building as they move between classes or cut across Pollock Road. But Old Botany has been standing there long enough to gather stories, according to Penn State legend. It's, of course, gathered more than that. The best-known spirit said to linger there is Frances Atherthorne, wife of the former university president George Atherthorne. Her husband's influence on Penn State is difficult to overstate. His name still carries weight across campus. Even in death, he remains close by, buried on campus along Pollock Road. Legend says that Francis never truly left him. Some claim that if a passerby looks up towards the uppermost window of Old Botany, it's just at the right moment that a woman can be seen gazing outward, keeping vigil over the grave across the street. It's a subtle image, a haunting in the quietest sense of the word, a wife who loved too deeply to leave. But Old Botany carries a darker story too. Some who have stayed late inside the building have described a more unruly presence. Carpets are said to roll on their own. The sharp sound of glass shattering has reportedly echoed through empty rooms. Those are the kinds of details that tend to grow in the retelling, of course. Old buildings groan. They settle. They complain in strange ways. Yet Old Botany has held on to its reputation and remains one of those places on campus where the air feels just a little heavier once the hour gets late. And if Old Botany feels watched over, George Atherton near his nearby grave only deepens that impression. There is something inherently unsettling about the on-campus grave. Universities are built for youth, ambition, movement, for the beginning of lives. Graves belong to stillness and endings. Atherton's burial site is a permanent reminder that this campus is older, weightier, and more layered than it first appears. Even those who do not believe in ghosts can understand why stories take root here. One does not have to see an apparition to feel that the dead are not entirely absent. And that feeling intensifies when you get to Schwab Auditorium. Old Botany feels like a place of watchfulness. Well, Schwab feels like a place of company. By all accounts, it's one of Penn State's best-known paranormal hotspots. Workers have reported footsteps in the upper reaches of the building when no one else is there. Soft voices can be heard drifting through that empty space. Seats have been said to lower by themselves, as though somebody invisible has quietly taken place for an evening performance. It is the exact sort of detail that lands halfway between eerie and oddly polite. Schwab's supposed resident is the form of an unusual cast, depending on who's, of course, telling the story. The building is said to be haunted by George, industrialist Charles Schwab, and an unknown woman, a boy, a janitor, and perhaps even the spirit of a Revolutionary War soldier, or possibly somebody who's dressed as one, which somehow feels more like a campus haunting should. Penn State's folklore has affectionately bundled these presences together under the nickname Schwabo. Schwabo. That little note of humor helps because without it, the place might feel oppressive. Instead, the legends make Schwab seem crowded in a strangely familiar way, as though the building itself dislikes being empty. It does not merely echo, it remembers. The voices, the footsteps, the shifting seats, and it is all suggesting of a place where an audience may still be gathering for the official event because it has not ended to them yet. From here, things get darker. Because no matter how many playful legends circulate across campus, there's one story at Penn State that does not belong to folklore alone. In the stacks at Patty Library, the history and the haunting meet in the most tragic way. On November 28th of 1969, a graduate student, Betsy Aratzma, was stabbed while researching in the library. She died there, and the crime was never solved. Even stripped of all ghost story language, the case remains deeply unsettling. A young woman in the place of study, quiet in concentration, a sudden act of violence, so few answers and so much uncertainty left behind. Perhaps that's why the library became what it did in campus lore. The stacks are already an unnerving place for many people. Narrow aisles, layered floors, long silences broken by distant movement that may or may not be another person. It's the kind of settling where imagination gets help from architecture. But those who speak of Patty's haunting often describe more than nerves. They speak of cold spots that arrive without warning, of books or objects disturbed, of feeling a presence close behind them in the aisle where no one else should be standing. Some have reported seeing an apparition of a young woman. One account even describes the sensation of hands closing around the neck. Whether these experiences are paranormal, psychological, or some fusion of the two, they reflect the same thing. Places marked by real violence do not easily surrender their emotional charge. The library does not need embellishment to feel haunted. The unresolved loss at the center of its core is enough. And on a campus so full of motion, that unresolved story lingers with particular force. It remains there like a question with no answer, one that the building itself cannot stop asking. Not all of Penn State's ghosts are tied to buildings, though. Some belong to the past between them. One of the oldest and most evocative is the legend of the Ghost Walk. The path itself is now long, largely erased by changing shape of campus, but the story survives. Once, students used that secluded stretch as a romantic shortcut and a convenient place to escape supervision. Somewhere in the late 19th century, telling of campus life, a darker account emerged. A student lost in a blizzard, unable to find his way, freezing to death along the long walk. Soon afterward, the stories of apparitions and strange sounds began in the area. Like so many old legends, the Ghost Walk tale may have served more than one purpose. Folklorists have suggested that it functioned as a warning, a story passed around to keep students away from a lover's lane hidden by trees and darkness. That possibility does not make it less interesting. In fact, it makes it better. The best ghost stories are never just about ghosts. It's about what people feared, about what they wanted to control, what they whispered to one another when the night gave them permission to. Still, the legend has a way of outliving its usefulness. Even after the path itself disappeared, the idea remains. Somewhere on campus, in the memory of that vanished walk, a lost figure still moves through the winter dark, unable to find his way back. And then, just when Penn State's ghost lore begins to feel too heavy, too human, too burdened with grief and unfinished business, the campus offers up one of its oddest and most beloved spirits, Old Coley. Penn State's most famous mule came to the campus in the 1850s to help haul limestone for the construction of Old Main. By all accounts, he worked hard enough and long enough to become a genuine campus character. After his death in 1893, the students lobbied to preserve his skeleton, which remains on display today. There is something wonderful that is absolutely specific about that. It's not just a school ghost, but a working ghost. Not a tragic bride or a shadow in a window, but a mule who apparently liked the place enough to keep showing up. Over the years, reports followed Old Coley's remains from building to building. Wherever his skeleton was stored, people claimed to hear hoofbeats in a deserted hallway or the unmistakable bray of a mule when no mule had any business being there. Believers insist that such a hard-working creature could never rest easy. Skeptics may suggest that an old university is a fine environment for strange noises and eager storytelling. But either way, Old Coley has become the sort of legend every haunted campus needs, an affectionate one. and the ghost who lightens the mood without completely dispelling it. And perhaps it's fitting, Penn State's spectral population, that if the stories are true, it's not made up of monsters, it's made up of presences. Some are sad, unsettled. Some are merely stubborn. Some, like Coley, are loyal. Which brings us back to the walk to the beginning. A campus at night, long stretches of sidewalk, a library behind you, a silent building ahead, a grave somewhere nearby, a vanished path beneath newer ground, windows that reflect more than they reveal, empty auditoriums that are not always empty, the sense, the impossible to prove and hard to dismiss, that all this land has been lived on too intensely for every trace to disappear. And that's what makes Penn State feel haunted. Not just the story themselves, but the way they overlap. The watchful faces in the windows, the voices in the auditorium, a young woman remembered in a library where answers never came, a lost student in the snow, and the steady phantom hoofprints of an old mule who still, somehow, has one more round to make.
And sometimes, all of that history, all of that presence, it narrows down to a single place, a single story, a single stretch of land with a reputation it didn't get by accident. But before we dive into that, real quick.
We have a question.
Patrick posed just a fun question.
Oh.
What is spookier, the sound of a spirit crying or the sound of a spirit laughing when you're alone in the dark?
Honestly, a child's giggle upsets me more.
I'd have to go with the laughing too. I mean, crying is certainly unsettling, but an unsourced laughter?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of feels a little messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, what are you laughing for? Why are you laughing in the dark?
What do you know that I don't know?
It's certainly, to me, it has a more immediate sense of danger, I guess you could say, behind that. Behind someone, anyone, laughing in the dark. So I'd have to go with that. I'd have to go with the laughter in the dark. And Patrick wants to pet the ghost mule.
I figured.
Yeah. I mean,
Patrick, you
totally
know, whenever
fair.
I find a ghost animal, I'm putting it in there for you.
I would totally pet the ghost mule, too.
I would, too.
Old
I'd
Coley
stretch him right there.
Sounds very, very friendly.
If I could find a ghost apple to give him, I would.
Yeah. And the kitty cats are getting compliments on being so chill this evening. Yeah. So chill.
It has a full belly.
Yep. So, back to our stories. Some places don't just have a bad reputation. They earn it. And they call this one Hell's Funnel. Just outside Strasburg, the road winds through quiet farmland. Open skies, scattered trees, the kind of peaceful stretch that feels far removed from anything sinister. But legend claims that peace is only surface deep. In the early 1900s, a man worked alone in a mill on his property. It was dangerous work with fast blades, heavy machinery, and no one around if something went wrong. And one day, something went wrong. The machinery caught his hand. With no way to call for help, he ran for home, bleeding and desperate. His wife could do nothing but watch as the injury overtook him. And when he was gone, legend says she couldn't bear the grief, so she followed him. Since then, the land has carried their story. Near a small lake on the property, witnesses describe a woman in white wandering the shoreline, sometimes even drifting just above it. Others claim something more unsettling, a sharp sting, a scratch across the arm, as if something unseen reached out and didn't let them pass unnoticed. Today, no trespassing signs line the area, and maybe that's not just about property lines, because whether it's grief or something that never quite left, Hell's Funnel doesn't feel like a place you explore, only one you hear about and then, wisely, leave alone. Now next, most of the stories we've told tonight live somewhere between legend and memory. passed down, retold, reshaped over time. But not all of them. Some stories don't need embellishment, some are quite real, and some are still waiting for answers. At 4 a.m, the building was never supposed to feel crowded. The Coatesville service building sat quiet in the early hours. Empty hallways, humming lights, the kind of stillness that comes before the day begins. One employee arrived like clockwork each morning, settling into a cube to prepare schedules before anyone else came in. For a while, nothing seemed unusual, until the lights started behaving strangely. One by one, down the hall, they would switch off and then back on. Not all at once, not flickering, sequential and deliberate. It was odd, but easy enough to ignore, at least at first. Then, one morning, she appeared. A woman stepped into view from the hallway. Her head was lowered, her hair damp, hanging forward to partially obscure her face. She wore a blue denim blouse with thin white stripes, something ordinary enough to feel real. But there was something else that made the moment feel wrong. She paused, looked up, made eye contact, and then continued past the cubicle, disappearing down the hall. The employee followed immediately. No one was there. No open doors, no footsteps, no sound, just an empty hallway. She returned the next morning. The same slow movement, the same lowered head, the same quiet presence. And that was when the realization set in. This wasn't a coworker or someone who had wandered in off the street. Whatever stood in that hallway was not alive. The sightings happened again, and this time it brought questions. The employee and a coworker began to look into the history of the building. Nothing. No deaths, no known accidents. So they widened the search, and that's when they found her. Years earlier, not far from that very location in Chester County, a fisherman had made a discovery along the banks of the Brandywine Creek. Inside a suitcase, in a remote stretch of land, were the remains of a young woman. She had never been identified. Investigators worked quickly, canvassing the area, searching for leads, trying to figure out who she was and what had happened to her. Forensic analysis provided only fragments. A general age range, physical description, clothing, but no name, no family. No one came forward. Months later, additional remains were found miles away, confirming what investigators had already begun to suspect. Whoever she was, someone had gone to great lengths to ensure she would not easily be identified. The case drew attention. A forensic reconstruction was created and shared across media outlets. Tips came in by the hundreds, but none led to answers. The story appeared on national broadcasts. It was discussed, analyzed, and revisited. And still nothing. No identity, no arrest, no resolution. But there was one detail, a small one, the kind that might not stand out unless you were looking for it. At the time of her death, the woman had been wearing a blue denim blouse with thin white stripes and distinctive copper-colored buttons. The same blouse. Back in the quiet office, the realization settled in slowly. The figure that had appeared in the hallway, the woman with the lowered head, the damp hair, the silent presence, matched the description. Not just in general terms, in detail. The sighting stopped not long after. No final moment, no clear ending, just gone. There are ways to explain things like this. Early mornings, empty buildings, the mind filling in gaps, especially after learning something unsettling. Patterns forming where none exist. That is one way to look at it. But there is another. That somewhere along the Brandywine Creek, a life ended without answers. That a woman became a case file, a reconstruction, a name that was never found. That whatever happened to her remained unfinished. And for a brief time, in a quiet building not far away, she was seen. Not speaking, not reaching out, just appearing, standing, and waiting. As if searching for something, or someone, or simply to be known. Today, the case remains open. The woman is still unidentified, the story still incomplete, and somewhere between the official record and the unexplained account of a woman walking silently through a hallway at 4 a.m, there is a space where the two overlap, not proven or explained, but difficult to ignore. Because in the end, the most unsettling part of this story isn't the sighting. It isn't the early morning silence or the flickering lights or the figure in the hall. It's the fact that she was real, that she lived, and that she was lost. And that, all these years later, no one has ever come forward to say who she was or why.
I don't see any new comments.
Nope, I probably have to refresh.
Okay. This is just going to be a new thing, isn't it?
For tonight, it seems to be, because yay, Facebook.
It's yay, technology.
Oh my. Oh wait. Okay. All right. So Patrick agrees that laughing would be more unsettling too. Don't know what kind of mischief will be about to happen. Crying is more sympathetic.
Yeah.
It's the most fun in the park when you're laughing in the dark. Nice quote there, Patrick.
Yes, very nice quote. We did watch Are You Afraid of the Dark growing up.
Oh, I love that. And your purple hair is awesome.
Thank you. It has a little bit of green. It's kind of cool. It's got a little peekaboo. Can't quite see it in this, though.
And then some links.
Yay. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
All right, so when a story goes unanswered but doesn't always disappear, sometimes it changes, becomes something else. Something people can carry, something they can see. So let's talk about Midnight Mary in Tullytown Lake. Some stories just don't end. They repeat. Along Bordentown Road, near the quiet edge of Tullytown Lake in Bristol Township, there's a stretch of road where headlights seem to linger a little bit longer, and those shadows don't always behave the way that they should. For nearly a century, drivers have reported seeing the same figure, a single girl, dressed for a night that should have ended long ago. They call her Midnight Mary, and she's always seen in the same way. A young woman in a pink dress, sometimes walking alongside the road, sometimes standing near the water, sometimes gliding across its surface. The story begins on a night meant for celebration, a prom, music, laughter, the kind of fleeting joy that feels permanent in the moment. Mary left that night with somebody. Who exactly depends on the version. Some say a date, some say a boyfriend, a driver who shouldn't have been behind the wheel. There are details that shift. But one thing never does. Something went wrong. Rain, maybe. A slick road. A moment's distraction. The car veers and loses control and disappears into the dark water below. When it was recovered, there was only one body inside, the boy. Mary was never found. And that absence is where the story begins. Not long after the accident, people started seeing her, a figure in pink, walking along the Bordentown Road late at night. Always the same dress. Always alone. Some say she dances, not on the shore, but on the surface of the lake itself, swaying slowly like the music never stopped, like she never realized the night had actually ended. Others tell a quieter story, one that feels almost kind. A driver sees her standing on the side of the road. She looks lost and cold, so they stop and offer her a ride. She gets in, sits quietly in the passenger seat. She doesn't say much, maybe nothing at all. And then, somewhere down the road, they glance over, and she's gone. No door opening, no sound, just an empty seat. Sometimes a faint puddle is left behind. Like many legends, Midnight Mary may have roots in something real. Some believe she is tied to a woman named Gertrude Spring, who died in a nearby car accident in 1935. The timing fits. The location fits. But the details don't quite align. Gertrude wasn't a teenager. There's no record of a prom. No clear connection beyond proximity and tragedy. But the story persists. Perhaps because places remember, and sometimes they remember more than facts. Out there along Bordentown Road, the air still feels heavy at night. The lake still holds a reflection a little too perfectly, and every so often, someone sees her again. A girl in a pink dress, walking, waiting, caught somewhere between a moment of joy and whatever came afterward. If you ever find yourself driving that road after dark and you see her standing there, you might wonder if you should stop to help, if you should ask where she's trying to go. Maybe she doesn't know. Maybe she's still trying to figure that out. Or maybe she already knows exactly where she's going and just waiting for someone else to take her there. In case, you might want to keep a towel in your car.
All good.
All good?
Yep. Yep. All right. Now, some stories stay tied to a place, a road, a lake, a single moment in time. But others, they build, layer by layer, until the place itself starts holding on to more than it should. Some buildings don't just hold history, they hide it. In the quiet town of Yardley, the Continental Tavern has stood for centuries, long enough to be many things to many people. A tavern, a boarding house, a shop, a stop along the Underground Railroad, a speakeasy during Prohibition. Each version of the building layered over the last, like pages in a book no one ever thought to finish reading. It wasn't until a renovation in 2007 that anyone realized just how much of that story had been buried beneath their feet. The plan was simple: restore the building to its late 19th century form. What they found instead was something closer to an archaeological dig. Beneath the kitchen, workers uncovered a sealed chamber, roughly 15 feet square, enclosed by thick stone walls with no obvious entrance. It shouldn't have existed. Excuse me. It shouldn't have existed. And yet it did. The only way in would have been from above, a trapdoor long since removed. When crews broke through and began excavating, the ground itself seemed to give up its secrets by the shovelful. Thousands of artifacts surfaced: bottles, tools, medicine containers, personal items, relics of everyday life discarded and forgotten. More than 7,000 empty whiskey bottles, many dating back to Prohibition. Old newspapers, coins, objects that painted a fragmented picture of decades, if not centuries, of hidden activity. It was, in many ways, a time capsule, but not all of what they found felt ordinary. Behind a loose section of stone, workers uncovered a small collection of items that didn't quite fit with the rest. A pistol, a woman's purse frame, and tucked into a crevice above, a corset marked with what appeared to be old blood. At the time the discovery was noted, photographed, and then, in the chaos of renovation, partially lost. The corset itself was accidentally discarded, just another strange find in a building full of them. At least that's how it seemed, until the stories began. It started quietly. A child, walking through the upper floors, mentioned seeing people no one else could see. A young boy, a woman. Not frightening exactly, but present. Then came the investigators. Skepticism gave way to curiosity, and curiosity to something harder to dismiss. Multiple paranormal teams were brought in, each working independently, each unaware of what the others had reported, and yet their stories began to align. They described a presence tied to one particular room, what had once been the largest and most prominent suite in the building. A woman, young and beautiful, receiving visitors from all over. Her name, they said, was Rose, or perhaps Rosa. A woman living a life just outside the boundaries of respectability in her time. And then, the darker detail. She had been murdered. According to what investigators claimed to uncover, her death was sudden and violent, driven by obsession, an unrequited lover, a demand she refused, a moment that escalated into something irreversible. And there was, they said, a weapon. There was a purse. There was blood. The building itself seemed to confirm at least part of that story. During renovation, workers uncovered the framing of a long-forgotten staircase, one that ran discreetly from the basement up through the upper floors, a way in and a way out. It was the kind of detail that changed the way everything else felt. Because while no official record of a murder at the Continental Tavern has ever been found, the physical pieces tell their own story. A weapon hidden, personal belongings concealed, a blood-stained garment tucked out of sight. And then there are the things that continue to happen. Staff and visitors have reported shadowy figures moving through empty hallways, objects shifting when no one is near them, the sound of footsteps, voices, the sudden crash of something falling, only to find nothing disturbed. Children especially seem to notice more. Figures that adults can't see, and people standing where no one is standing. It would be easy to dismiss. Old buildings make noise. History invites imagination. Stories grow over time. That's one explanation. But there's another. That somewhere in the layers of this building, beneath the renovations, the artifacts, and the carefully restored walls, there are pieces of a story that were never meant to be found. A life that ended without record, and a crime that slipped quietly between the pages of history. And maybe something that still lingers. Because even now, long after the excavation and after the investigators packed up their equipment, one idea remains. That maybe there is still evidence in that building, still hidden and waiting to be uncovered. Because perhaps the strangest discovery of all came after everything else. Just a single object, unearthed from the dirt, a skeleton key. As if the building itself was offering one final suggestion, that there are still doors here that have yet to be opened.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So, by now, the stories are over. The roads are quiet again. The buildings have gone still. At least that's how it seems. Because places like these don't really forget. They hold on to things. Moments that ended too suddenly. Stories that were never finished. People who were never found or never truly left. And maybe that's what all of this has been. Not just ghost stories, but echoes. A woman still searching a dark road. A voice in an empty hallway. A figure standing where no one should be. A door that hasn't been opened yet. You don't have to believe in any of it. Many people don't. But the next time you find yourself alone on a quiet street, in a silent building, or somewhere that feels just a little too still, you might notice it. That feeling. That something is there. Not trying to scare you, not trying to be seen, just still there. And maybe that's the part that stays with you.
All right. So we do have a couple of things next week. We are going to be on a podcast Tuesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern Time.
Yes, that is going to be back with our friends at the Vibe Radio Network.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have
the Freaking Awesome Paranormal Show.
Yep, the Freaking Awesome Paranormal Show. So that was at 9 o'clock?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock next Tuesday.
Not sure what we're talking about. Ryan hasn't told us what he wants to talk about. So we're just going to go with it.
Yep. So, yeah, but we'll be checking in with them. We haven't talked to them, at least not on the air, in a while. We've caught up, chatted with them here and there and at some other events in the area. But, yeah, it's been a while since we've been on the air with them. So we're looking forward to catching up with them.
And then next Saturday and Sunday, not this coming one, but the following one, we will be at the Richmond Renaissance Fair at Norrie Park. Vending, of course. So please come and check us out there. Come say hi.
Yep. And those are the big events for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have tours going. I think we got tours going. We got
tours going through Saturday right now.
At least through Saturday.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Nobody's booked for Sunday.
Nobody booked for Sunday yet. But, yeah, we got people signed up for tours every day through this coming Saturday. So, lots of that going on. As a matter of fact, Lee was out tonight over on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
So, weather's warming up, or I guess it's going to be
There's no rain in the forecast.
Yes.
Let's keep it that way, because I got to work on set.
Might be slightly cool this week. Slightly.
That's what jackets are for.
Yeah, exactly. It's not uncomfortably cold. It's not like January.
No.
So it's going to be perfect weather. Come on out. You can get out. Still fairly early in the spring. It's getting dark early. You can go get a nice tour in the dark and without, sweating.
Like crazy or mosquitoes.
Yep, and the mosquitoes aren't out yet. Not that any of that stops us, but
It's more comfortable when they're not.
We're not going to lie. We can't lie. It's true. So, but anyways, thank you so much for putting up with us and our technical difficulties this evening.
And cats.
Yeah. Well, the cats they've been pretty good tonight. Yeah. Kitty cats have been pretty good tonight. Even Lulu popped in on the edge of the frame for a moment. So, yeah, they've been pretty chill this evening. But, and then we're back in, supposed to be 2 weeks.
I think it's 2 weeks. I can't remember which script I'm working on.
We threw our schedule off by throwing this schedule off, and we haven't even started that script yet, have we?
I thought I did. Okay, well, I will work on that.
We don't know what's in 2 weeks. We're going to aim for 2 weeks. Do something that I don't want it to do.
But yeah, we'll do another state because we're still promising to get through states this month. Or this year.
This year, yes, we are aiming to get through all the states this year. And and Patrick, thank you for throwing that link up there. Yep, you can go ahead, check that out, see what we got going on. And yes, the kitty cats were all good tonight. Well, thank you for all the links, Patrick. The Ren Fair, the podcast, our podcast on our YouTube link. Thank you. And our ghost tour link. And I like the stories in between. It leaves a lot to the imagination and a lot of unanswered questions. It's good, spooky fun. I'm glad that it's working for you. As I said, we're trying something just a little different in the way the stories flow. Yep. So I'm glad that you're enjoying it. I'm liking how they're rolling off the tongue myself.
Occasionally we get the alliteration.
Yeah, alliteration can still come back and bite you.
Stumble.
But in any case, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. And if you did, give the page a like, a follow, all that good stuff. If you've never seen us before, share this. We love being able to talk to people. So, especially you, Patrick. Thank you, Patrick, for chiming in on the comments again. Always appreciate that. And with that, hope you all have a good evening, have a good week, and we will
see you later.
See you all again soon. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. If I can.